Thank you so much, Janet. Indeed, it's afternoon where I am today. I'm over in Thailand. It's 1:40 p.m. here. But I was born in Sweden, educated in Australia, and then I've lived the last 21 years in Southeast Asia.
What an international chap you are.
Yeah,
We're doing a tribe sober retreat in Bali in October, so we're very excited about that.
that should be brilliant. But I'm in Bali from time to time. I was there last month for a keynote. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I'm celebrating my 10th soberversary.
Oh, wonderful. Have a great trip then.
Thank you. So let's dive into your story a bit, shall we, Nick? I was just go through your socials and your LinkedIn. Amazing following on LinkedIn. Well done for that. 6 years ago, you were overweight, drinking daily, and spiraling into meltdown. Tell us more.
Yeah, I was born in Sweden and perhaps in a family where we didn't really talk about feelings, and I didn't have a way to express myself. As life went on and as I studied and as I was then eventually in the professional world, I didn't know how to cope with emotions and so on. Since I didn't express myself, I found that alcohol was a way to calm down after a stressful day and at work and so on. It became my sort of normal go-to after work, like many others. The issue is perhaps that I maybe did it a little bit more than others.
Yeah, me too. You made your career in corporate, I presume. Talk to us about that.
Yes, I did, Janet, and I was a late starter. I was 23 when I went to university. First, I was basically working and so on before I went into university, feeling that I should study hard, I should get a scholarship, I should top the classes. This kind of winning mindset then was something that I carried with me in the workplace, and I wanted to excel in the workplace. I worked hard for promotions and so on. I had a huge drive, but I didn't care much about others. I didn't care about my health. All I cared about was hitting the targets and promotions. When I started as an account executive, I only saw myself as the account manager, account director, general manager, and managing director, which is the path I took. And as they say, it can be quite lonely at the top, and that was certainly what I felt.
Yeah, so I saw you refer to a rock bottom somewhere. What happened at your rock bottom?
After about 11 years in the corporate world, when I reached where I wanted to be, I started to have self-doubt. I questioned everything about it, almost like I cheated myself, because if this is what I worked so hard for, why am I not happy here? Then I resigned from the work. I lost the structure of that, and with that also ended up in trouble at home and went through a divorce. And that was a very lonely place. I jumped from job to job and basically failed in everything. The only thing I perhaps succeeded in was consuming alcohol. That worked as a temporary relief, but after 2-3 years of drinking way too much, I couldn't hold it together anymore. My body was collapsing, and I really thought that life was over at that stage.
Have you heard that saying that you spend years and years climbing the ladder, the corporate ladder, and then you realize it's propped against the wrong wall?
Yeah,
That's true of a lot of us. What kind of age were you when you had this rock bottom?
I was exactly 40.
Okay, so midlife crisis.
Yes. I wasn't vulnerable. I wasn't open. I didn't discuss my feelings. I didn't ask for help. And that's why I was not set up to handle this. If I would have had those measures before, it would have worked fine. In fact, I had some good colleagues and I was very close with my boss. I used to spend Sunday afternoon on barbecues with my boss, and we really spoke about everything, but I didn't talk about my feelings. I didn't express where I fell short and where I needed help. I remember also in the office getting a mentor, someone who was 10 years ahead of me. And on my meetings with my mentor, I tried to impress him instead of opening up about the challenges I had, because I knew that he ultimately would be the one to sign also on my promotions. That's the culture I had in all my companies, and therefore I just didn't open up about anything.
Yeah. You and I have both been in corporates as an executive coach. And what you've just said underlines for me the value of having an independent executive coach rather than a mentor who is part of the hierarchy, because you can have completely different conversations. I think that boys are I've brought up one myself, just to be a little bit tough and not to be vulnerable. If a little boy is crying a lot, you say, oh, come on, don't cry. Whereas little girls, I think we have an easier time growing up. So I think it's almost normal for a guy to not be vulnerable, and they have to learn how to do that. You obviously have done, so well done for that. So tell us how you stopped drinking, first of all. As this is a sobriety podcast, maybe we can get some tips from you.
Yeah, and the only reason I stopped drinking was because actually I was so sick at that time that I thought my body was going to give up. I couldn't leave my house because my left foot had swollen up at that stage like an elephant foot, and I had to seek help. And it was later diagnosed as a psychosomatic illness, the mental condition, because I had not expressed my feelings, because I spent 3 years drinking on my feelings, and my body was shutting down, and I had to ask for help. The saving thing for me was that I had then remarried, and I decided to open up about my feelings to my new wife. We were married 3 weeks when I shared what was going on. She naturally listened with empathy, took me to a doctor, got some help there. Then we went to a friend of mine who had gone through some issues before, someone who sobered up herself, and shared what was going on. She gave me a couple of phone numbers, and I ended up in a 12-step recovery program. And that was really where I got the help I needed. As I walked out of that meeting, I haven't had a drink since, because basically I had a chance then to express my feelings, and I didn't feel judged. And all I needed was to speak, and alcohol had filled that gap. By speaking up, I didn't need a drink, and I haven't had an urge since.
Amazing. Yeah. So that was about 6 years ago.
Coming up to soon 7 years now.
Congratulations. You rebuilt your life and career from that moment onwards, really.
Yes, I did. The tools in the program was a good starting point. I went through the steps and so on, and then I wanted to go a lot deeper. So I educated myself as a coach. I'm now studying psychology to become a therapist and counselor, specializing in addiction. So I do it for myself to really learn and understand all of this, but also to be there to help others. So that's become my path in life, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you've ever read that book by Laura McKowen. It's called We Are the Luckiest. And I think a lot of us in recovery, we've hit rock bottom, we've been through this awful time in our lives, but it's then changed the trajectory of our life to such an extent that we realize that in retrospect, it was actually a good thing, even though it didn't feel that way at the time. And I think the story demonstrates that as well.
Yeah, thanks. I agree. We are the lucky ones in this regard. Sadly, the most of us don't make it, though. I lost many friends at that stage who are not alive today. So if we do survive through that phase, then indeed we are the lucky ones. I would add that we are also the grateful ones, right? We become humble, and we can be there and support others afterwards.
The power of vulnerability, as I like to call it. I think Brene Brown, that's her expression, but it's the power of vulnerability. It's really the essence, certainly, of our sobriety group, Tribe Sober, and of most sobriety groups and of AA. From what I've seen about you, you do a lot of work with executives, and you're encouraging them to be more vulnerable. I found this quite intriguing, and I wondered how you did that without the guys or the ladies feeling that they're losing face. I mean, in Asia especially, that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, so the way I do it typically in organizations is by me giving a keynote first where I share my story. And then I'm also sharing through storytelling that of others who I interviewed for my book, both men and women. I'm sharing case studies of real people, and some of them have actually allowed me to use their name and their profile, which has really helped. Some successful business people who've gone through challenging times. And through that, then people can understand saying that, if this is not for yourself, maybe there's someone in your family or of your friends or someone of your colleagues who are going through a difficult time. So when you do that, they feel that you're not talking directly to them and they feel a bit safer. So it's about creating this safe space. I also say that we need to be comfortable with being vulnerable. We have to discuss these topics. Then after that, I do workshops. So it's typically a keynote first for them to have something to think about. Then a series of workshops where we practice to be vulnerable. We declare it as a safe zone, and having questions where people present everything from when was the most difficult moment of your life. Then I prep some of the people before, ideally the top leader, who need to agree to then start sharing something that they never shared with the team, sometime perhaps in their life when they went through something very difficult. And by doing that, they are helping to set the scene. Then the rest will share something that was difficult in their life. Then you're connecting at a very deep level. What I found is that while it's difficult to get started, once you open up that box, people actually love to be vulnerable and people love to have the chance to speak up.
That's a great strategy for you to share your story and then get their most senior person to be open as well. And then it opens the floodgates then, I think, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. When you talk about the uncomfortable feeling of being vulnerable, one of our coaches, she introduced this and we use it a lot now. We just say to people, try and learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because for a lot of us, alcohol was like an escape hatch, wasn't it? The minute we felt awkward or uncomfortable or sad or even happy, the alcohol came out. It's learning to sit with our feelings, isn't it? Which is something we have to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about having the tools to do that, and journaling or calling someone or meditating or breathing exercise or whatever it is, that we need to be ready for that. Life will become uncomfortable at various times, and most often when we least expect it and at a sudden moment, right?
Yeah, but to have other coping strategies apart from alcohol, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
In one of your LinkedIn posts, I just saw the heading 3 warning signs of burnout. What are they?
Oh, the warning signs of burnout. Yeah, definitely. We need to really take an honest look at ourselves, because I think many times we are in denial when it comes to burnout. We are just so driven in the corporate world that we want to deliver, that we are not ready to actually acknowledge that we might be in the zone for it. So I think that's the first one, yeah, to really be honest with ourselves. The second one is really to look at if there's been any changes in our habits or anything that we typically used to do. In my case, I gained 30 kilograms leading to my rock bottom, and it was partly burnout, and I was consuming alcohol to cope with it. So look at what habits perhaps we've changed. I changed my training regime to going to the bar. I changed my healthy food to fast food and pizza. So that's the second one. We can look at that for in our family and friends, but also at ourselves. Then I would say the third one is if we are not talking about it, if we are just keeping secret. When I was falling down, I was not ready to discuss it with anybody. When I resigned, I didn't want to disclose what was the reasons and so on. So that, again, the fact that we're just keeping it secret.
Yeah, those are very good signs to be aware of. I had a corporate career that I really enjoyed, actually. I loved my job. I was a bit of a workaholic as well as an alcoholic. But in every corporate that I worked in, there was this work hard, play hard culture. They really expected us to work, and most of us loved what we did. So we worked very long hours. And then afterward, we drank, and we drank together as colleagues. And we'd go into the office the next day feeling a bit fragile sometimes, but it was almost a badge of honor, this hangover thing. I've been out of corporate for 20 years now, and I wondered if that culture is changing.
I believe it is changing with the newer generation. Step by step it is, which is, of course, I believe a good thing. I think it's also changing because of people are more aware after the pandemic, and we're trying to balance our lives. We are not in the office every day. We're also prioritize ourselves at a different level. I'm generalizing now, but that's what I see. I believe it's a positive change.
Yeah, and that is the impression that I get as well, because in the UK, apparently about 25% of young people don't even drink. And those people have got to feel comfortable in their jobs, because when I was working, if you didn't drink, you were almost left out of things. You didn't really know what was going on half the time. Yeah, I think that's very encouraging as well. And I've interviewed quite a few people that are either going into corporates from a sobriety viewpoint, but of course they crave their training and their workshop in the wellness arena, how to be more healthy. And they bring in the dangers of alcohol, because I certainly didn't realize just how dangerous it was when I was a heavy drinker. I've also interviewed people that are doing yoga and mindfulness sessions in corporate. Yeah, when I was in corporate, there was nothing like that. So I think things are changing, which is great. In recovery, we need to become more resilient. We need to learn that, don't we? I wondered what resilience means to you.
Yeah, and for me, resilience means not just pushing through and grinding it through, but rather be quite aware that we are challenged, and then using our support network and asking for help and going through it together with other people, for me, means being resilient. Yes, of course, sometimes we need to go alone, and I practice my own resilience in sport. I do the Ironman sport, the triathlons, and then it is a lot mentally up to yourself to push through, but it is in a format that we are training for, and you're doing it rather than someone in the world of work who's pushing through and at the cost of the expense of damaging themselves. That's not not being resilient, according to me.
Yeah, interesting. I love the title of your book, although I haven't read it yet. I will, but it's called Executive Loneliness. That's a really interesting title. Tell us more about your book and what it's about.
Yeah, so I wrote the book in 2019 to 21. So I started to write it before we were in the pandemic, because I realized that there was more people than me who found themselves isolated in the workplace. I started by doing a survey, and what I found was that about 30% of the senior executives found that they were isolated or lonely in the workplace. So that was the starting point of this. The last question was, tick this box if you are okay to be interviewed. As I started then to interview executives about feelings of loneliness and isolation in the workplace, I was quite shocked what I found, because the questions then that I start to ask them, okay, if you're not feeling well, are you going to ask for help? That's where the answers quite shocked me, because actually about 75% would not ask for help. And actually another 84% would also not be comfortable to even talk about it to their company. So that means that if you're not well mentally, you clearly are not going to seek help, and you're not going to talk about it. That means the vast majority will walk around keeping it for themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a great idea to do a survey before you embarked on the book. But yeah, I also discovered that when I was an executive coach. I worked with quite a few CEOs, and I realized they actually had no one to talk to within the company. There were issues that they couldn't really be open about, and that is a kind of loneliness, isn't it? I wasn't there to solve their problems, because that's not what a coach does. But I could see there was such a relief in talking things through when we were able to come to some conclusions together. Yeah, very interesting and valuable topic, I think. When did you decide that you were going to become a coach?
I actually already started to study coaching in around 2006, 2007. So I was already fascinated about it, but I doubled down on it in recovery. That's when I really went the extra mile, signed up for more coaching and so on, because I just felt that I was sitting on something in recovery, a gift that I could give back to other people. And that's where it all started. And I keep going down that path. I keep looking at which courses to sign up and what coaching certificates I can do. That's why it led me to now study to become a counselor and a psychotherapist as well.
Yeah, so you've got a lot going on. Are you a sobriety coach as well as an executive coach these days?
Yes, I signed up for that as well. I did that through the school in London because I felt that I wanted to know more and help more. And what I realized was that not everyone wanted to join a 12-step program. Perhaps not everyone was clinically so sick that they were ready to commit, that they were fully defeated. It seems like there's a lot of gray zone drinkers, just like we discussed before, that people are more health conscious these days. And maybe even around the corner, we will start to see warning labels on alcohol that is actually not healthy to consume it. And with that, I'm sure that even more people will question what they're drinking and realizing that they're actually poisoning themselves. So I think that's a welcome change. And with that, more and more people will question it, and some may need some help with that. So that's why I also went down the path of becoming a sober coach.
Yeah, because the Surgeon General in the US has now announced that link with cancer. I'm so pleased to see it's coming into the public domain, because that fact that alcohol is a #1 carcinogen, it was first published by the World Health Organization in 1988. It's incredible that it's been not talked about more in all those years, because I certainly didn't realize there was a link between my heavy drinking and cancer. And then I got breast cancer and I was still in denial. But many of our community ladies have had breast cancer. There's a huge link there. So yeah, I think things are changing and it's about time too. I think eventually alcohol is going to go the same way as cigarettes went. I mean, I used to smoke in my 20s and nobody told us it was linked to lung cancer. And when the news was in the media, a lot of us just stopped. I stopped when I was 30. I think if the health links about alcohol had been out, I would have questioned my drinking. But I never thought about it. I just thought everybody drinks a lot, don't they? Of course, I mixed with people that drank a lot, as we do, to convince ourselves we're normal.
I fully agree with you. It wasn't communicated clearly. I think as leaders, we have the responsibility of communicating the risks now when it is official. Leaders of a family or company or an organization, I think, yeah, and we need to spread the word and be there for people who then want to explore sobriety. I think it's a great gift.
Yeah. Even the fact that there's a sober curious movement is brilliant as well. So you do the coaching, executive coaching, sobriety coaching, you write books. Are you writing another book?
I am writing another book, yeah, as a follow-up on my first book. Executive loneliness was to break the stigma on the topic and really to make some noise and realize that there is a big problem with loneliness out there. The second book is more really now the stories, success stories, my success story, and of others who actually have come forward and worked on themselves. Have developed a 5-step model, which will go into the next my next book, and it's really about holistic leadership, that we are not only driving so hard for professional responsibilities, but also thinking about our own well-being, and it's with that the social health, mental health, and physical health.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds brilliant, because I think we all love case studies. So the fact that you've exposed this premise of executive loneliness in your first book, and now you're going to publish some case studies, it's a great way to do it. So apart from all that, you're also working in corporates. Yeah.
Yeah, do consulting, coaching, team coaching, workshops, and so on with the corporates, really coming in to make the teams more connected by vulnerability. They need someone external to do that, to help them with this, to set the scene and facilitate these conversations, because it's not easy. And there will be tears, there will be people crying when we do this. We need to declare this as a safe place and have someone lead it. So that's what I'm passionate about doing these days.
Fantastic. Which countries do you do this work in?
I do it mainly in Asia. I done a lot of work in countries like Maldives, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore, Malaysia.
Do you do online programs?
I do run a men's group, and we have weekly meetings online there. We also have some talks every month. So that's an online program. And also in EGN, the peer network that I run, we have confidential peer groups, mixed gender, but we group them by seniority, which is a safe space for them to discuss their challenges. So that is some of the online programs that I work with.
Okay, so you do a mix.
Yeah.
So how can people contact you if they want some of this good stuff? The books, first of all, is that on Amazon?
It is on Amazon, and also if someone prefers as an audiobook, it's on Audible as well, and it's called Executive Loneliness. It's on LinkedIn, otherwise people can find me.
Yes, yeah, you've got a great LinkedIn profile with lots of good content on it as well, which is nice.
Yeah, thanks.
So anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to mention?
I think you've done a great job in covering so much today. Just one last message. If anyone is going through a difficult time, I would just encourage everyone to think about who can they reach out to and ask for help. There's so many wonderful people out there who's gone through challenging times. As we said, it's a gift and it's a blessing having gone through that, and we are here to help others now.